I am Katy Wanuko, and today I will share with you my inquiry topic, organizational learning in nonprofit organizations. First, I will offer a brief overview of my research on organizational learning and nonprofit organizations. Then I will present my two selected organizational development tools. Finally, I will share my reflection and my takeaways. Organizational learning describes the dynamic process of engendering, holding, and sharing knowledge within an organization. In nonprofit organizations, this concept is critical, not only because the natural purpose of nonprofit organization is to generate social impact, but also because these organizations require a highly efficient use of the resources. Organizational learning and change. Organizations are themselves learning systems where knowledge and values are exchanged, leading to an improvement in problem solving and action capacity. Hoes points out the relevance of system thinking as a way to analyze the mutual dependence of multiple aspects of organization dynamics. Thus, organizational learning is defined as a process that occurs over time. Indeed, when members in an organization transform these experiences into knowledge by identifying patterns of their connections, the organization tends to choose to operate more from a learning mindset than a control mindset. Organizations recognize learning as a key enabler of change, growth, and success. Learning to manage conflict and resistance. Researchers over the years have attempted to address and encourage the practice of organizational learning as a basic strategy in organizational design, a dynamic that emerged in organizational processes and an adaptive training exercise for complex learning through continuous innovation. According to Kadra and others, if organizational learning is a strategy, it can generate a structure that ensures the creation of organizational learning in its day to day operations. Darling and colleagues highlight that emergent learning could allow more voices to be integrated into discussions, a deeper understanding of open systems, and even include an evaluation of existing data in order to clarify ambiguities. Thus, consolidating and or remembering these dynamics of success and or failure could become key learning lessons for responding and adapting to new situations. Lu shows that adaptive learning may not only strengthen the ability to perceive and adapt to changes in the environment, but also may provide skills for complex learning through continuous innovation. The challenge of learning. Intergenerational issues and struggles such as individual and group interests are two of the critical aspects that researchers highlight to take into consideration in managing conflict and resisting to change in the organizational learning processes. According to Spring and Urich, intergenerational learning could facilitate learning and knowledge transfer into the workplace. But in order to do so, it requires a series of intentional organizational efforts. Organizations are challenging to break down negative perceptions and stereotypes between generations in an effort to facilitate positive interactions. Further, organizational learning is not only challenged by generational understandings, but also is called to address the interests pursued by members of the organization. Field assert that there are common and competing interests during organizational learning. Organizational learning may be motivated by technical, power, and money interest. Thus, in order to facilitate organizational learning, it is important not to ignore these associate motivation because they could be useful starting points. Creating a mindset and learning environment. Achieving comfort with conflict. Cultivating a psychological safe environment for learning and offering coaching and ongoing training could create a mindset and learning environment for organizational effectiveness. Davey argues that conflict can be used productively. Indeed, normalizing the conflict could reduce unnecessary burnout. In order for tension to be naturalized, creating an environment of reliability for discussion is paramount. Edmondson and Harvey contribute organizations can cultivate psychological safe environment. Psychological safety makes people more comfortable sharing knowledge, seeking feedback, and talking about mistakes to develop insights and adjust to new circumstances. These processes need accompaniment so that the transfer of the new knowledge is channeled as a source of sustained and supportive learning that enables willingness to adapt and change. Hackman highlights that coaching could prevent future breakdowns that stop organizational learning. Coaching can enable effectiveness and increase a mindset of ongoing learning. According to Kirwan, ongoing training for learning could provide the necessary motivation to sustain creative efforts and transfer learning to the work environment. Ongoing training becomes an intentional organizational support for learning. Organizational development tools. Learning organization survey and real-time learning analysis are two organizational learning tools that allow an analysis of learning factors in practice. Although each resource takes a different approach, both enable an evaluation of organizational learning, not only from the work experience, but also from the factors that influence it. Created by Garvin, Edmondson, and Gino, Learning Organizational Survey allows participants to see strengths and weakness for a long-term learning within organization. The survey is structured around three building blocks: a supportive learning environment, concrete learning processes and practices, and leadership that reforms learning. The authors recommend it used as a most appropriate for the whole organization because it can improve the performance of individual teams, departments, and the whole organization. A tip. One of the most valuable features of this survey is that participants can compare their scores against the benchmark that is provided by this tool and or in comparison with other members of their team or department. This process of comparison is essential to open a space for self-reflection and conversation. In order to manage this necessary exercise, the OD consultant needs to establish a clear communication before and after administering this survey to explain that this organizational learning tool is not a critique, it is a tool to promote a dialogue. Created by the Harvard Human Research, the real-time learning analysis tool considers core practices of emergent learning tables, framing questions, using action hypotheses, and before action reviews and action reviews. This tool explores relevant data, provides space to recognize ideas to have or have not worked, and design actions which consider the wisdom of the group and move it toward strategic actions and evaluation of result. A tip for this tool. Although the structure of real-time learning analysis looks simple, it's important to ensure that the people in the room are free to speak openly in order to facilitate effective conversation. Reflection. Organizational learning practices not only transform experience, but also integrate the community wisdom, which is bold, resilient, and flexible into the life of the organization in the short, medium, and long terms. Nonprofit organizations have a great advantage in these processes of becoming a learning organization. Without intending to generalize, nonprofit organizations by their nature tend to prioritize their resources and energies on aspects that help them grow, expand, and sustain themselves over time. Learning is a value, but as we have seen, to become a learning organization requires not only appreciation, but also intentionality, commitment, and involvement. Thank you. I will be happy to answer any question that you have for me. Thank you for your feedback and see you soon.